pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to read the board norms. Debate, commentary, and discussion are healthy and open. Listening and speaking are equally important, and both should be done with respect and consideration. Focus is on students and our schools, not politics. We assume best intentions in all discussions. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
You getting this, Bethany? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. I don't think we had any public comment out there. And is there anybody in the audience that maybe did not sign up but would like to speak? Yeah, okay. All right, we'll turn it right over to our student representative report. Thank you, guys.
We'll start with Rutland Intermediate School, who has been busy collecting clear milk jugs to create a school-wide igloo for when it snows. The project was inspired by a true story from Guatemala, where children built a new school using trash and water bottles. After learning about it, the 4th grade students were motivated by the idea of turning recycled materials into something meaningful, and decided an igloo would be a perfect Vermont twist. The 4th grade students proudly shared their idea during our school assembly, and it was a huge success. Since then, milk jugs have been coming in daily. If you'd like to support this creative project, please feel free to drop off rinsed and cleaned gallon jugs at the school. For the month of November, our character trait is gratitude. As a school community, we are exploring what gratitude means to us. We've created a gratitude wall on the main floor and are building a gratitude chain that will soon hang throughout our hallway. There is so much to be thankful for, and it's important that we take time to celebrate it each day. Finally, we extend a heartfelt thank you to our incredible community. We are deeply appreciative of the dozens of the donations and support already being offered to help our families. Rutland truly is an amazing place, and we are grateful for the generosity that surrounds our school. At RIS Tapestry, students had an adventure to the Wonder Feet last week, where they had an opportunity to play and learn in the upstairs classroom with Miss Marissa. Weekly, we learn about current events through CNN Kids broadcast, coupled with small group discussions about the topics presented, which can be anything from spider monkeys to SNAP benefits. We are looking forward to introducing a debate series soon also. Northeast worked hard to balance our busy October schedules by practicing our pause character trait of the month of mindfulness all month long. Students and staff enjoyed a perfect Vermont fall day during our fall festival, and it is wonderful to see so many families at the school-wide Halloween parade. This month, our pause character trait is kindness, and November is already shaping up to be a full of community-centered events at Northeast. So write these dates down. November 14th, Northeast and Northwest STEAM Day at Rutland Rec. November 18th, PTC Grocery Bingo at 5 p.m. with prizes and baskets. November 20th, 2nd grade concert at 6:30 p.m. in the Northeast Gym. And November 21st, Northeast Community Thanksgiving Luncheon. When we return from Thanksgiving break, we'll launch our school-wide WIN block, which stands for What I Need, a targeted literacy-supported block developed in response to our fall FastBridge assessments. During WIN time, students will work in small, flexible groups with a member of our teaching team to receive focused instruction based on their current stage of reading and writing development. Instruction will target key literacy skills such as letter recognition, phonemic awareness, decoding, vocabulary, and comprehension across all 3 grade levels. Finally, our PTC is thrilled to announce its next fundraising goal, purchasing a book vending machine for our school. Families can support this exciting project by joining us for Grocery Bingo later this month or dining at Applebee's on December 10th, when a portion of the proceeds will go toward the PTC. The book vending machine will help promote the joy of reading at home and school for all students. And at Northwest, our Lifetime Sports program continues to be something our second graders are excited for and they look forward to Mondays. So far this year, our students have been actively engaged in mountain biking and hiking at Georgetti Park, and we have just wrapped up a week of rock climbing at the Green Mountain Rock Climbing Center. One of the highlights of the rock climbing unit was partnering with Northeast. This was a wonderful opportunity for our two schools to come together and enjoy a shared experience. We are excited to build upon this shared experience by joining Northeast at the Rutland Rec Center for STEAM Day this Friday. This week, we are concluding our FastBridge assessment window. This year marks our second year working with Partnerships for Literacy and Learning, and our teachers will now have the opportunity to dive into the FastBridge data at the grade team level, using the protocols developed with PLL to collaboratively analyze information and identify areas of celebration, areas in need of improvement, and actionable next steps. Northwest also wishes to express our gratitude to our families for once again supporting Stuff a Bus. After a successful week of collecting food, all students had the opportunity to travel to Price Chopper Plaza to deliver the collected items. This is a wonderful way for our students to learn about giving and supporting the community. We'd like to remind you and the community that our second grade concert is next Tuesday, November 18th. And the doors will open at 6:10. The concert begins at 6:30, and we hope to see you there. Finally, Northeast and Northwest Tapestry. The K through 2 programs join forces to design and deliver a trunk or treat event at Northeast School, celebrating October's National Lights On After School Awareness. 15 trunks were decorated by program staff, the RHS Key Club, Wonderfee, Rutland Free Library, and 4-H. Stewart's also donated ice cream and servers so the roughly 100 attendees could enjoy a sweet treat.
From Stafford Technical Center, last week our school participated in our annual Day of Community Service. Students and staff raked the 28 lawns throughout the city, and each resident was the recipient of a freshly baked apple pie from our culinary arts program. Upon returning to Stafford, the school community was treated to a lunch prepared by our culinary arts student. The recruiting season for the 2026-2027 school year is in high gear. Sophomores at each of our partner high schools are learning about the opportunities of Stafford and will be invited to visit one of our showcase days in late November or early December. Current 9th graders are also learning about our tech exploratory program that they may apply to as a sophomore. We will host our final career night on December 4th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. where students and families will have the chance to check out any of the programs here at Stafford and enjoy a meal prepared by our culinary arts students. From Rutland Middle School, we have had a busy month. We hosted exchange students from Ladenburg, Germany, who presented to several classes about life in school in Germany. We also hosted our RISE exchange students who participated in classes with us and then gave a school-wide presentation about their town, Hanamaki, Japan. We recently had our Q1 Awards Assembly. We recognized and celebrated students for academic achievement, significant improvement, and effort, and students who exemplified good citizenship, grit, self-awareness. In addition, we hold our raffle for students who were not tardy to a single class during quarter run. Rutland High School. Rutland High School was pleased to host Chris Poulos for an all-school assembly. Chris is a world champion BMX rider and spoke with the students about the importance of hard work and being nice to one another, and trying your best. He did all this while riding his bike and demonstrating some of the tricks that have allowed him to be a successful BMX rider. RHS was also pleased to host the state's redistricting task force. Vermonters from around the state met with members of the task force to express their perspectives on the work. We were joined by most of the Rutland County legislative delegation who thanked the district for hosting such an important discussion. And from the Rutland Middle School and High School EPIC, as we develop our programming to meet the needs and interests of students, student-led clubs are expanding. A new crochet club is starting soon. The RHS EPIC Cooking Club is learning new kitchen skills and creating food on a weekly basis. RMS EPIC is engaging with our community partners to expand learning opportunities. Wonderfee and Clover Exploration are providing STEM programs on Tuesday to help us be open and available to kids. RMS Epic is also excited to start weightlifting and launch a new newsletter publication.
Thank you both very much. Thank you. Any questions? All right, great. Pam, I think we're gonna kick it off to you.
Superintendent's
Yeah.
report. It's going to dovetail nicely with the students' report, so I'm kind of excited about that. So I'm going to do something a little bit different tonight. And back when I got this job last January, somebody said, and I really can't remember who, hey, don't be afraid to shake up that superintendent's report. So when I was thinking about the different things that I wanted to share tonight, I'm like, well, maybe this is the time to shake it up. So it's meant to be more of a visual walk through our district. So if you want to go ahead and put it on the first slide, awesome. So when you walk around our district, you would be struck by the number of positive messages that you see. Messages that are aimed at uplifting and encouraging our students and our staff. The vertical wall spaces are used to focus on specific character traits from the portrait of a graduate, and to relay the message that everyone belongs. On this slide, you'll notice the primary student language focused on empathy at Northwest, a vibrant tapestry that hangs at the intermediate school, reading "Everyone Belongs," and a bulletin board displayed at Northeast that highlights the accomplishments of English language learners. There's also 2 interactive opportunities for students that are shown here. One is at Stafford. You'll find that it's a Take What You Need board, and it contains positive affirmations and encouragement cards that students can take that say a variety of different messages, just letting them know that they're valued and that they are encouraged to do their best. And then at Northwest, you'll notice that there's a mirror, and alongside that mirror is a whole bunch of different affirmations, including sayings like, I am helpful, I am creative. So if you stand and look in the mirror and you read those, a student can't help but look at themselves and say, I am enough, I am caring, I am a good friend. So I share these just because I wanted to highlight how creative our staff is about using all sorts of different ways and pathways to help students grow in an environment where they're able to. All right, next slide. In this slide, you'll see that there's a group of RIS students who are leaders recognized at the school-wide assembly focused on collaboration, another one of our portrait of graduate traits. Students at Northeast have been learning about community. You may be able to see that in student-friendly language. This is on the smaller slide, so you probably can't see it on the smaller picture. But it says, community is a place where a place or a group where people can belong. Through events such as the Fall Festival and in community meetings in classrooms, students have plenty of opportunities to develop their sense of community and belonging. The top parachute picture, that was the Fall Festival at Northeast. The next slide highlights an annual event. We try to provide some cross-grade, cross-campus activities for kids. So this is the annual RCPS Chili Cook-Off. It's organized and facilitated by Allen Street and Pierpoint staff and students. And so students from across the district with the staff create and prepare chili, and then in a blind taste test, the best chili is selected, and you can see here by the Facebook post that RIS was the champion of the chili cook-off this year. And their prize is they get bragging rights. The next slide, more opportunities for folks to, for our children and our staff to connect. You have the RMS student staff soccer game. I believe the kids won, the students won. Did anybody hear?
For the first time in many years.
Did you say the first time? I like how you added that in there, really important. First time in many years. You just heard about Chris Poulis's presentation. In this assembly, there were grades 3 through 8 in the gym. What was interesting, I was standing by the door, and to see some of the younger students come in and see the mass of students, they were just like, oh, you know, I mean, it was really something to see that many kids sitting together and attentive. Last week, as you mentioned, we also welcomed our Hanamaki, the students from Hanamaki, Japan, our sister city, and I'd just like to throw out huge kudos to the community for continuing to keep that a vibrant piece of our history and our presence. It's not just a school event, it is a community-driven exchange, so special thanks to them. The last slide about community, You heard about Stafford's leaf raking event and Stuff-A-Bus. We also had an advisory group from the middle school that was doing some community learning and including learning more about the police department and seeing some of the work that they do. And then finally on this slide, there's also a board that's at the high school that highlights the work of our PLACE program. PLACE, of course, stands for Promote Learning by Activating Community Engagement. If you want to learn more about that, feel free to give me a call, but it provides opportunities for students in our community to do internships and to learn through being in the community. And the last thing I'm going to share, no, sorry, it's not the last. There's, at Northeast, there is this bulletin board, it's a staff shout out. And so in full excitement for building colleagueship, staff have the opportunity to share thanks and shout outs of celebration to their colleagues. I had the opportunity, I was thrilled to be able to go and see our 3 UVM outstanding teachers at that award ceremony a couple of weeks ago. The building principals went as well. And then in October, we had our ESP, our Educational Support Professionals, Professional Development Day. Ellen Colvin, one of our coaches, gave a presentation about literacy. And then Ryan LaBella and Abby Bennett presented about supporting students with behavioral challenges. So then the last slide is really quite simple. It is really a gift that I get to go around into our buildings and see our dedicated staff who are connecting with kids, encouraging spoken words, looks and gestures of support, and visual reminders that communicate that they are cared for, and affirmations that our students can and will succeed. So I feel very blessed, and our community is an amazing place.
Great.
Any questions?
Who were the judges for the chili cook-off?
Everybody there is a judge, so everybody
Oh, my goodness.
Everybody votes.
Everybody gets to vote.
Everybody gets to vote. So there's no names on the chili, they're numbered, and then you put in your favorite one.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. How did I get it?
And interesting, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, RIS was a chicken chili. Yes?
Ooh.
Yes,
In unison.
that's different.
Thanks, Pam. Fun to shake it up a little bit.
Well, shaking up.
So it's very controversial
Visuals.
right there.
Shaking up.
Chili, you know?
I know, agreed. I really didn't think I was gonna like it, but it was my favorite.
You know?
Good. Ooh. Okay. All right, any other questions for Pam? No? Okay. All right, we'd like to invite Melissa Connor and Ted Clementis to talk about the Stafford Technical Center budget. Ted.
Good evening. So this is our annual evening presenting to you our Stafford budget, and we always do a little bit of education first because ours is very different than the city budget. So a little bit about the background. As you know, we are governed by a regional advisory board, and as part of that, we have a committee called the Finance Committee, which is made up of all of the superintendents of the districts that we serve. And so we start the process of creating a budget with them, and so they kind of give us a charge in September of where they want this budget to come in. This year, for the first time, they didn't really give us a % of increase. They just said keep it responsible and reasonable. So the big task was to make sure that programming continues the way that it's continuing. Conversation was around trying not to expand anything this year because of the tight budget constraints that we were looking at. At the time that we start the budget development process, there's lots of unknowns around healthcare. And so actually, as we went through several versions of the budget, I think we ran the budgets with 3 different percentage increases for healthcare. When we finally got what we are projecting, healthcare increases being 7.3%, which was nice after having double-digit numbers the last couple of years. So salary and benefits make up about 72% of our budget, and then other fixed costs are around 8 to 9%. So there's not really a lot of the budget that we have control over. So when we are trying to adjust our tuition, for every $50,000 that we increase or decrease, that impacts our tuition by about 1%. So just to kind of give you a measure. So like we do every year, whenever possible, We have our teachers kind of submit what they are needing. We ask them to do a 0% increase, but we also say if there's new technology that you need to keep the programs going, let us know that. And then we move as much of that equipment into grants, not guarantees, but we try to work with the grants as much as possible. The other thing that we looked at this year, we've been doing a lot of repairs around the building. So you may remember we've been doing a lot of asbestos abatement and flooring replacements. We have one hallway left to do, but the Finance Committee did make the decision that we needed to not do that this year in the Stafford budget, just because of the uncertainty of a lot of different economic factors. So I believe Rutland City is going to consider that. I just broke the microphone, so. She kicked the table, so we'll blame it on Kate. So, anyway. So Rutland City is going to consider that as part of their budget as they go through their process. Another change that we made to try to bring down our tuition rate for the year was we have 2 paraeducators in our preschool. So we are moving one of those preschool paraeducators out of the local budget and to be paid through the revenue through the preschool. So trying to get creative in how we are funding things to decrease our tuition. So combined, all of those efforts reduced our tuition by about 4%, just to give you kind of a, we started at 14.7% with the asks. So that brought it down about 4%. Then we made an additional about $360,000 in cuts to program instruction and administrative expenses. Things that we cut were professional development opportunities. We looked at the actuals that programs have spent on average over the last couple of years and decreased to reflect those numbers. So in some cases, some programs were looking to add new certifications or expansions, and kind of the lens that we use to look at that is if we are currently meeting the state requirement, we are holding off on adding those new opportunities. So that kind of gives you the lay of the land. The one thing that we did not cut, and this was advocated by our superintendents, was that our Engineering 2 program does need new laptops. They're about 5 years old. And they are a model the IT said they can no longer get parts for, so as they break down, they cannot be repaired. And so we are down right now about 3 laptops in that program. So we will be making the recommendation to purchase those. So in the packet that you were provided in your board packet, if you could turn to page 6. So tuition for tech centers is calculated at what we call a 6-semester average. So basically what we have to do is every October 15th and March 15th, we have to do enrollment reports for this school. And we have to look at all of our students and determine which town they actually reside in. And so we do surveys for that, and we work really closely with the registrars at each of our partner high schools. And you'll see on page 6, this is a listing of all of the towns in which we have students currently attending and kind of where it has been for the last 6 semesters. And so what we do is we calculate that 6-semester average for each of our towns, and that is the amount that they will pay. They'll take our tuition times whatever that number is for their 6-semester average, and that is how their tuition for their town is determined. So if you look, for instance, at Rutland City, so this year we have 41 students that reside in Rutland City attending Stafford as of October 15th. And you'll see that the 6-semester average is 49.174. So even though there's only 41 students attending, Rutland City will be charged for that 49.174 students. Last year, it was a little bit different when we looked at this. We had 50 students enrolled from Rutland City, and you were billed for 55.01. So it has gone down. And the reason that they have done a model like this for several years is really to protect the towns and the school districts from unexpected fluctuations. So if you suddenly went from 30 students all the way up to 50 students, that would be a huge increase in tuition. So this is, trying to regulate that tuition and that increase and decrease. So again, I mentioned earlier that our budget is built on many kind of estimates and guesses because a lot of the factors that go into our budget are not decided yet, but we have to have our budget determined and our tuition rate announced in time for each of our partner high schools to build their budget. So we have to be a little bit earlier. So fortunately, the finance regulations for CTE do allow for us to have what they call the 3% buffer. So if we are overestimating our budget by 3% and we have a surplus, we're allowed to keep 3% of that. That goes into our reserve fund. Anything above that 3% has to be returned to the towns based on their 6th semester average. If we underestimate it, which we try not to do, we always like to overestimate and return money. But if we were to underestimate, then again, anything above 3%, so if it was 5%, we would charge each of the towns 2% based on their 6th semester average. So a little bit of that. One thing you'll also notice in the budget packet was a little bit about the Perkins grant. So we do not know that figure until about March of what we're going to get. It's usually roughly about the same. So if you look on pages 3 and 4, it kind of outlines for you what our goals are. We are anticipating around $343,000 for FY27. As you know, federal grants are a little uncertain these days, so we don't know if that will be the amount. When I asked the state CT director, she said we're moving forward as if we will have the same amount granted to the state of Vermont, but obviously there's a lot of unknowns. So the overarching goals that we've listed here are basically what we are anticipating spending the funds on. But for those of you that have been around for a couple of years, every 2 years we have to do something called a comprehensive local needs assessment. And this is the year that we are doing that. So I feel like we just did it.
I felt like you just did it.
So you have a nice presentation to look forward to in the spring. But the results of that assessment process determine what we can and cannot spend the funds on in our Perkins grant. So we have ideas on what we would like to spend the funds on, but until we finish that comprehensive local needs assessment, the goal is to have it finished by early March. When we get the grant award, that will really determine where we actually can spend those funds. So now Kate's going to walk you through kind of how the tuition for the proposed tuition is calculated, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so if you turn to page 5 of your packet, as Melissa said, we start this process early in the school year in September because we need to get a jump on our budget so we can present it to our partner schools. And like we said, every year we want something that's fiscally responsible but still maintains the integrity of our curriculum that we deliver to our students. So when they leave us, they're ready for college or career or both, and they have that competitive advantage. So Melissa mentioned our anticipated Perkins allocation of roughly $343,000. Then as you move down, we use the base education rate for the fiscal year 26 to help calculate our overhead assistance amount that that's included in this. And then when we move toward total direct expenditures for fiscal 27, this represents an increase from FY26 to FY27 of 2.3%. And this is related to those rising health costs and different factors in supplies are ever increasing, and then just various operational essentials that we need. And then moving down to our total expenditures for fiscal 27, these will be increasing by 2.1% if you compare them to the previous fiscal year. Our FY27 total expenditures are down 2.8%. And for our total revenues for FY27, this is also down. This is down by 2.1%. And it's the result of a slight decrease in our Perkins fund, our anticipated value, a decrease in our state salary assistance and overhead assistance. So when we take these figures and we move further down the spreadsheet and looking at our net expenditures, those have increased to 4% overall, which is then calculated into our tuition rate. And we are, for FY27, presenting a tuition of $23,205 per student who's attending Stafford. So we take the net expenditures and divide that by our six semester average, which Melissa reviewed. So this represents a 4.2 increase in our tuition when compared to last year. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the number piece of it, and then Melissa will now speak to what we do next as far as the process goes.
And the other document I'll point out in the packet is on page 7. Each year, we kind of look at the other tech centers around the state to see where they are tuition-wise. And this year, we are out of the 14, we're number 8, which for a full-day center, and you have to remember, a lot of these are half-day centers versus full-day centers. We have a lot of expenses with an academic staff that they do not have. So, currently for this year, our tuition is $22,260. When you look at the kind of the wide range, the highest being $34,920 down to the low of $14,000. I think we're doing pretty well for the service that we provide, and we anticipate, based on conversations I've had with other directors, that we'll be in that same range. This is my 11th year here at Stafford, and we have always been right in the middle, so we try to maintain that spot. So the next steps, we will be presenting the same presentation to our Regional Advisory Board on December 3rd, and then coming back here on December 9th, looking for a ratification of that budget, as long as the Regional Advisory Board approves it, because that is a required step. Also that evening, we will actually have 2 motions for you, one for the ratification of the budget, and the second for the approval for us to accept the federal Perkins funds without a dollar amount, but we do have to have this board's approval to accept those funds. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
A quick question. I'm just thinking, how long have you been doing the 6-semester average?
This is my 31 year, and we've been doing it that long. I mean, so it's been forever.
Well, I'm wondering, and maybe I'm just not thinking about this right, it almost seems like you're like financing this over 6 semesters. So if somebody, there's like somebody in 2023 had 1 student, you're still paying for them now.
Yes.
And in the meantime, the prices are changing of the tuition. So it's just interesting. I'm curious what that looks like, over time. If it goes down, they're paying at a cheaper rate now than they had when they had more students at the time.
Correct.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
So I'm just curious.
And that's one of the reasons that with the CTE study, they're looking at a different finance, because right now, if you look at it, when Rutland High School is preparing their budget, they have to allocate a certain amount of money for Rutland City students to come. And so for some districts, it could create what they consider a disincentive to send students to Stafford, because it's money coming out of the budget that they can spend in their local high school. So that's one of the reasons they're looking at changing the funding formula and going with some sort of a weighted average, but we have to kind of wait and see what happens with the rest of what's going on with the AOE and education at large. So yeah.
Any other questions? No? Gosh, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Very thorough information as usual. Thank you. All right, Ted, I think you're staying. And Glenn Scott.
Happy budget season, Ted's
Yeah,
gonna
right?
stay all
It's
night.
up next is our maintenance and budget related to maintenance and capital planning.
All right, good evening, everyone. As Melissa said, this is our annual, or in the facility's annual report on our proposed budget that we put together. This is our first draft. And as we reviewed in Building Committee, we took a look at our critical needs, and we also took a look at what our feedback is in terms of some of the grants that we're working on, and then we included a couple of bus replacements, which I'll talk a little bit about. But overall, this only, our proposed budget increases less than 1% for this year. Our overall maintenance goes up a little bit, and our proposed capital projects come down a little bit. So you end up pretty much at a wash, but that we've seen some small increases in our custodial cleaning supplies, such as bags and cleaning chemicals and so forth. But overall, not major increases in terms of overall services and contracted services. But this is what we proposed this year. So at Northwest, we are working on a grant-funded project at Northeast, and this basically adds some supplemental surfacing and equipment at Northwest in terms of equity, so that they also have some playground and accessibility provided at the Northwest Playground. RIS, we are going to replace the ground floor and one classroom. This is a continuation of our project, our flooring project at RS, where we've replaced a lot of flooring. The ground floor is probably the most needed of replacement across the district. We have multiple tiles. We also have some areas that will need some asbestos mitigation, so the mastic and glue below the tile. So that'll all be ground up and then replaced with new tile. And we've included one classroom that has become an emergent need just because there's a lot of bumps and there's some tripping hazards in there. So that would be summer of next year if approved. Middle school, we've got a number of projects. The cafeteria doors needs replacement. There's 5 entrances there, and almost every single door is beat up, not always secure, and so we get hardware and new doors. There's a pump replacement included in that, so that's the main pump that pumps the hot water throughout both buildings of the middle school that would need to be replaced. And we've included a number here for the replacement of the fire alarm system. This is one project, a critical need. We've worked over the last 5 years through each building replacing fire alarm systems that have been way past due. And basically RMS is in need of that as well. That's one of the original fire alarm systems. And it just doesn't meet code in every area. So you would get a much upgraded increase of coverage, safety, feedback for the fire department when they show up. The fire alarm panel will show right where to go. So it's a major system upgrade, but also a pretty big project. RMS, we've included a small additional supplement to the cafeteria renovation, which we're talking about, and we've been talking about at the cafeteria kitchen, and then the below and above, basically, to do some upgrades. But we're supplementing that with some additional USDA funds that we hope to use for that major project. At the high school, we need to replace the snow tractor, so that's a pretty old tractor, and basically that would upgrade our snow plow, blower, and the blade. Again, another theme we've been looking at, modernization of elevators, so the high school elevator would need to be modernized, much like we're going to be working on in the coming year. But basically this brings some safety upgrades. It's the original component, drop power system, the levelers, all of those things would be upgraded. And then, as Melissa mentioned, we would pick up the center and west hallway. This is the final phase of replacing all those hallway floors at Stafford. And then district-wide, we continue to put this number in just because we have faced a couple of rough winters. Asphalt repairs across the district would be addressed. So you start to see these initial alligator cracking and some cracks and through especially last winter because we had a lot of freeze thaw. So a lot of repairs that would need to be addressed. Northeast, Allen Street, High School, RIS. But then as other things pop up, we'll certainly find them in the spring after, depending on how the winter goes. And then district-wide, there's currently a bus that serves as our equipment bus, or equipment van transportation at the high school. We would replace this bus. It's like a 2009 or 2007 with a small box truck that could be used for equipment and also for maintenance or any department across the district that would need it because it would not require any special license. So if we had moves or things of that nature, we would use that in maintenance as well. And finally, to replace one of our smaller, older buses, it's a 17-passenger bus. It's a 2008 as well. We looked at upgrading to a mid-size bus, which has ADA accessibility, also straps, so it would also supplement and become the primary bus for our pre-K or early education bus transportation. So that would just be one bus solely dedicated to that as well, and any routes associated with that. So that's my presentation. Does anybody have any questions tonight? Right.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you. Thanks, Glenn.
I just have to put my whole report.
Okay, all right. Ted, I think you are now the star of the show.
Slide over one more seat.
Yeah.
Here we go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks to you. Let me just pull this up here. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight, give you a brief update on the preparation of our '27 budget. Short story is the process is going well. So far, there are no major surprises, except perhaps for the good news that you heard about in Melissa's presentation about the lower anticipated rate of increase for our medical plans, which for the first time since fiscal '23 is going to be in single digits instead of double digits. So that'll be a help to the budget. Key point is that Pam, Bianca, Kerry, the principals, and our other administrative leaders are in the process of finalizing their expectations for the staffing needs for fiscal '27 needed to deliver our educational programs. And by the end of this month, we expect to finalize those staffing projections and then hence the associated salary and benefit estimates cost for the budget. Well, the numbers that you're going to see in the next couple of charts are still preliminary. And I want to emphasize preliminary, and they're very likely to change when we report back to you in December. But this is the working basis that we have at this time so that you can see directionally where we're going. And as I hope you'll see when we look at some of these metrics, so far, they're in a reasonable range year to year. So the chart on page 2 shows you some selected enrollment and staffing trends. As you can see, it starts with metrics from the FY24 budget over at the far left and moves over to preliminary estimates for '27 in the right-hand column. In the upper panel, you see a couple of enrollment metrics. As you probably will recall, there's quite a variety of different metrics that are used to report students and pupils by the AOE and gathered by school districts. These are just two of them. And the two that I'm showing you tonight, the first on the top line is what I've referred to as Rutland City Public Schools reporting. Several times per year, typically in September or October, then again in December, March, and June, our registrar, working with administrators, pull together an enrollment report. And those numbers that you see on that top line are reports from September or October of the respective year. When Pam does her enrollment analysis in a short bit, she gets into much more detail, and you'll see some similar numbers, although the numbers for FY26 and preliminary '27 that are on my chart here are different a little bit, but just a little bit from what Pam has, and that relates to the timing of when snapshots are taken. It's not unusual, but statistically speaking, these are the same numbers. And then below that, you'll see what's referred to as the long-term weighted average daily membership, which is a metric that the AOE produces every year based upon metrics that we give to them. And the reason why I'm showing these two numbers is because if you look at the trend since '24, you'll see that the trends are divergent. Okay, so that it's not surprising. We're well aware of the fact that our enrollment trends based on the classroom head counts that we typically take, and Pam will describe in further detail. It's been trending down at 1 to 2% per year the last couple of years. Right now, it looks like based upon an October snapshot, it might be down perhaps more like 3 to 4%. But what's really interesting, as you'll see on the next line, is the long-term weighted average daily membership has actually been going up substantially over the same period. And that is a result of changes that were made by Act 127, passed in '22, which updated very out-of-date metrics that had been used for the last 20 years and more accurately, based on UVM study metrics, represent the kind of typical costs for educating students. And what you'll see is with some of those updates and corrections in the metrics, our average daily membership went up in fiscal '25 by almost 12%, even though our enrollment by head count went down about 2%. And then for this budget year, it went up again by more than 5%, even though, again, enrollment was down a little bit. So part of that also is reporting changes that were made by Act 127. We're getting more complete and more thorough reporting in some really key categories that make a difference for our metrics, and that's good news. But we won't really know until December what these numbers are going to look like. I'm not sure that we'll really know when I come back to you in early December, but the numbers are coming. And of course, the question becomes, will we continue to see an increase in long-term weighted average daily membership as we have in recent years, or will it level off? And that's an important question because this particular metric is used to determine average cost per student. And as you'll see in the box that's in the lower part of the panel, our average cost per student, and hence our tax rate, are very, very sensitive to these metrics. So the district works really hard to make sure we count every possible student that we're allowed to count. Our registrar does a wonderful job of doing that. But if you just took a look at the 26 metrics for this year's budget and you said, well, what would have happened if we had 100 fewer long-term weighted average daily pupils? Well, that would have had an impact on our tax rate by almost 5 cents. So it just goes to show that the work that we do to make sure that we count these students as accurately as possible makes a big difference ultimately to the taxpayer. And I can't really predict at this early stage what that number is going to look like. At the bottom, you see some staffing trends, and the reason I'm showing you that is to just remind everybody, for the previous couple of years, we've been budgeting typically in the 490 to 495 total full-time employee range. Our staffing needs have stayed relatively stable. We've taken advantage of a little bit of natural attrition on the way. We reduced that a little bit in 26. I'm showing you a preliminary number of 480 only because that's what's in our system right now, but I highlight for you that that's in progress, and again, I'm sure the number will be different when we come back. I would expect, based on what we're seeing right now and what I'm hearing, that that number's likely to end up in somewhere in the 480 to 490 or low 490 range. In other words, not too different from the previous year, but once again, that number will depend upon decisions that our leadership makes in terms of what staffing we need to deliver the programs that are important. The last two lines on here, I just show for interest comparison purposes. You know, we try to budget, of course, for the number of staff that we need to deliver the educational programs, but we also keep an eye on the relative alignment between staffing and enrollment. And all these two lines show you is that over time, if you look either at the number of students enrolled from the top line per employee, or you do the reverse and look at employees per enrollment, we're stable, we're kind of in the same range. So nothing dramatic happening there, which, you know, is not what we necessarily intend to do, but it's a good check on the reasonability of what we are doing. So before I move on, let me ask if you have any questions about these numbers or these trends. Okay, let's also show one more historical trend, because it's important, especially perhaps for some newer members of the board. This shows you, going back to fiscal 18, the Rutland City homestead property tax rate. And I'll start off by emphasizing once again that we do not budget to a tax rate. We budget for what the school system needs. However, obviously, we're always cognizant and considerate of what the potential implications for a budget will be for that tax rate. Well, this year was a relatively good year in the sense that our tax rate dropped by 6 cents from $1.67 in '25 to $1.61 this year. And we can take some credit for that by virtue of the careful fiscal stewardship that we try and do every year. But another very major factor in that drop is completely out of our control at the state level, and that's called the property yield. And that's a metric that's used to determine the tax rate. We'll know when we talk with you again in December what the yield is going to be for '27, because the tax department's going to issue that on December 1st. So we'll get a little bit of insight into what that might be looking like. But we and many other towns benefited from a very favorable yield in fiscal '26, and that will have an important impact. And the other reason I'm showing you this chart is because at $1.67 and $1.61, as you can see, we're near the top end of where the tax rate has been for our community over many years. And so, you know, we have to be sensitive in terms of where that's going to go. One metric that I use, Melissa was mentioning to you, $50,000 for Stafford's about 1% in tuition. Another rule of thumb that we look at is, based on the 26 metrics, a $270,000 change in net education spending, and that's after federal grants, equates to about a 1 cent change in the tax rate. So, you know, once again, every time we look at adding a few $100,000 or reducing a few $100,000, naturally we have in the back of our mind, well, that either helps or hurts the tax rate. Any questions about those state metrics and trends? Okay, let's get into a little bit of what's happening at the district level. What this chart shows you for the current 26 budget and the preliminary numbers for 27, and again, The numbers for 27 are going to change. But it shows you for our professional teacher and nurses, as well as for our education support professionals, primarily paraeducators, it shows you the key elements of compensation, which of course includes salary and benefits, and then the total. And it shows you the change anticipated at this point in time, bless you, from year to year. And really the key numbers on there are 8%. So based on where we have right now, and this reflects the lower anticipated increase in medical costs already, we're estimating that the overall compensation, both for our professionals and for ESP, is 8%. And I'm showing you this because these two categories, these two groups of employees, constitute about 80% of our total employees. So, they're about 370 out of our 490 or so FTEs. So as this group goes, pretty much so goes the salary and benefits budget. So that's just, something to keep in the back of our minds. Any questions or comments about that? Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
It's 8%, each one is 8%?
Yeah. So if
So
you
it's a
look
total
at,
of 16
I'm sorry, go ahead,
So
Stephanie.
it's 16 between the two?
No, 8%.
Oh, 8%
overall.
total.
Right.
Okay.
So, if you had $100 of total compensation for professionals in ESP, that'll be $108.
Okay.
Both are going up by 8%. That's a good question. Thank you for asking for the clarification. I'm glad it's not 16%.
Me too.
Okay, so the next chart or two just kind of gives you a few snapshots. You've heard a little bit of this from Glenn and from others, but the nuts and bolts of the basics are looking very good. Budget-wise, as we go forward into 27. Our IT organization, who is always very careful from a fiscal standpoint, I really can't say enough to thank them for how creative they are in making sure that we not only have, the state-of-the-art technology that we need to run our education operations, but in managing costs. So you can see as of right now, we're expecting less than a 5% increase year to year in IT, or less than a $60,000 total increase, which to me, I think is amazing. That excludes, however, possible one-time costs. Well, they're coming. A phone replacement project, which is non-discretionary, to replace equipment that's basically at end of life, as well as potentially some upgrades to our PA announcement network, which could add potentially $100,000 up to $100,000 of one-time costs. So that kind of shows you what we're putting into the budget. Again, these are one-time deals, but we're at end of life, and there are important reasons why we really do need to do this. It's akin to having assurance that your fire alarm systems, for example, are up and current with code and technology.
Currently, our PA system is attached to our phone system, so naturally with replacing the phone system, we have to replace and upgrade our PA system.
And of course, the good part about that is we'll be engaging the vendors just to make sure that as we do that, everything's compatible and, it syncs really well. But this is going to be, right here, a very substantial workload on the district team, but we're gearing up for it, and we're gonna take it on, and we'll look for any efficiencies we can along the way. Food service costs, they're expected to increase by 18%, or close to $300,000, 26 to 27. And that is some of the best money that the school is spending. Because this represents a rebidding of our food services contract to ensure that the vendor has enough money to do the right thing. Those new contract terms added about 14% of cost year to year, because quite frankly, we got a bid that was very low the year before, but perhaps it was a little bit too low. But now people are very satisfied with both the quality and the consistency and the quantity of food that we're getting, and that's very important for our students, as you can appreciate. The expectation that we have for 27, based on CPI trends, is that food costs will probably go up by close to 4%. 26 to 27, so that's the other part of the 18. But again, that's pretty tight, and it's definitely, we're definitely getting value for the money being spent there. As Glenn told you earlier, building, grounds, and transportation costs essentially flat year to year. So right there, though, that adds, if you add up those numbers, that's $650,000. But I do want to add that, like with the phone replacement project, some of those costs are going to qualify for federal credits. They're called E-rate. And so the actual net cost to our bottom line cost will likely be less than that. Any expenditure that qualifies for the E-rate program gets a credit of 80%. So we're currently working out what the net cost will be for the budget. Any questions about that? Okay, let's look at just a couple of more data points. Bianca's going to talk to you in a few minutes about, federal title grants. But as of right now, we're assuming that federal title grants and Medicare funding are going to be flat to probably lower year to year, and we're going to work that into our calculations. So we're also assuming currently no change in our tuition fees. We currently get about $3 million of revenue every year from other towns that send their students here. So, but we have been raising in recent years those tuition fees to get them more in line with what our average costs are, and we think we've done a good job for that. So we're not anticipating the need for any significant change in those costs. We are, however, going to be taking a look at tuition fees for our Allen Street and PPLC programs, because we've not adjusted those recently, and those could increase a bit for '27. Any questions about revenues? Okay, so next, I'm sorry.
Unlike
Yes, please.
Stafford, maybe, these tuitions get paid upfront? Or how does
During
that?
the year. I mean, they're paid during the year.
Broken out during the year?
Yeah. When you, I mean,
They're
it's
specific to student. It's not a long-term.
it's not based on a 6-semester average.
No, right,
Yeah.
but they pay it in installments for
Yeah,
the
throughout
year?
the year. Yeah. Yes, Stephanie?
The Allen Street campus in Pierpoint, we also take non-Rutland City?
We do if we have space within our programs.
I did not know that.
And there's a need in our greater community. We have some other towns that tuition their students to us.
I did not know that.
So what we're in the process of doing is taking a look at, what those costs have been in the past year, and then figuring out what the appropriate tuition is to make sure that we're in the right range.
We've also tried to provide stability, so if a student is with us at their Allen Street or Pierpoint and they move to a different town, we try to continue them within the program. It's in their best interest. And that if the other town, it's called the local education agent, or LEA, if they agree.
It's not a large number of students, but we
No.
have them.
I was gonna say, I don't feel like I've ever heard that piece, so I was 5.5 years in and I'm still
Well,
learning.
there you go.
Thanks.
Always something new.
Yep.
Okay, so lastly, just the next steps that are going on in the next couple of weeks. We're going to meet with Pam, Bianca, and Carrie at the end of this month, and we'll complete an update of our FTE assumptions based on the input that they're gathering with meetings across the district, and we'll finalize the scope of any potential recommendations regarding pre-K. And that's what I had for you this evening. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you?
The only thing that I'll add is just that we're being very cognizant of the title funding, which again, Bianca's going to explain a bit later, and just the thought that if we don't have title funding, what are some things that we currently pay through those grants that we absolutely should put in our local budget, in our local funds, so that way we're not going to lose them if that money were to not come through next year.
One of the really important aspects of what Pam just said is that even if there's no increase in activity level per se, if there's a switch from grant funding to local funding, that therefore creates an increase in our net education spending. So even if the levels kind of stay the same, the mix is changing, not necessarily in our favor. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Ted.
Talk to you next month.
Appreciate it, yep, thank you. Pam, I think you're. Oh, there's it, okay.
All right, so you have in your packet, an enrollment report. And so annually, the superintendent provides enrollment information to the board and to the community. Taking a close look at our enrollment helps us to make decisions and to guide discussions related to student needs and our allocation of resources. So you'll notice that this report includes at least 3 years of enrollment data, and as we review the numbers that are provided to you, I'm just going to highlight some key points. It's important to just note that our Allen Street campus, Pierpoint Personalized Learning Center, and Grove Street students are counted in the building in which they are enrolled. because those other, the Allen Street, Pierpoint, and Grove are programs, not schools. Okay. So the first set of numbers provides information about our primary schools. Each school year, the number of classrooms for each grade is listed, along with the number of students in each grade. At Northeast, you can see that we've shifted from 4 classes for each grade level to 3 this year as enrollment has declined. Additionally, at Northeast, you can see that the number of students in kindergarten this year is higher than in the last 2 years. We have 14 more students in kindergarten this year than 2 years ago. However, our total enrollment at Northeast is down 14 from last year and down 52 students from 2 years ago. The data tells us a different story at Northwest. The number of classes per grade has been adjusted annually in the response to enrollment. So sometimes we have 3 classes and sometimes we have 4. As with Northeast, we have many more kindergartners this year than in the past past 2 years. We have 26 more kindergartners this year at Northwest than we did last year, and overall the district has 40 more kindergartners than it did last year at the same time frame. Northwest has seen an overall increase of enrollment over time, adding 26 students in comparison to 2 years ago. And as with all of these numbers, and Ted alluded to it as well, it's a snapshot. It's not specifically, October 15th to October 15th, but it's generally in the same time frame. It's a mid-year report. Any questions about our primary data? All right, so moving on to page 3, you'll find enrollment information for RIS, RMS, and RHS. So in comparison to the Northeast data, you're going to see a more longitudinal look, as RIS and RMS data are included for the last 7 years. The number of students for each grade is included, but the number of classes is not. So compared to the primary buildings where you had it broken down by grade, it is not in this, like number in each class, it is not. Number of classes. At RIS, you're going to notice that there's some fluctuation from year to year over the past 7 years. Currently, we have 7 fewer students than we did 7 years ago. There's 32 fewer students this year than last year, with the biggest dips in grades 4 and 6. The RMS data indicates a decline in enrollment over the last 7 years, although the numbers fluctuate from year to year. The decline has not necessarily been consistent over time. It's not like it's a steady trend down, it fluctuates. The number of students just go up and down. Where we do see a consistent decline in enrollment over the last 3 years is at the high school. As of the time of this report, our enrollment stood at 696. I know right now it's a little bit higher than that. The average decline over 3 years is 26.5 students. So as I noted, it's just a moment in time. The reports that I'm sharing tonight are compared to last year around the same time. With that being said, the final page in your report is a look at our enrollment over the last 30 years. In all grade clusters, our enrollment has declined over 30 years. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding any of that data?
I have a question.
Super.
In some, like for Northeast, Northwest, in the high school, you did the last 3 years, but the middle school, intermediate school, you did 7.
I had that same question when Sherry and Kaylee gave me the report. I said, "How come you just do the last 3?" They said, "It's the way it's always been done." And so we'll look at that for next year.
Yeah,
We're planning.
I had the same question. Like, how come we only have 3 and then we have 7? Because it's the way it's been done.
Okay.
Learn something new.
I knew
Yeah,
somebody
shake it
would
up.
ask that question. I knew it.
You know, shake this up too, make it.
There you go.
consistent next
Maybe I'll
year.
make it a little more pizzazzy. I don't know.
Okay, any other questions for Pam?
Is it always the way it's been? I'm not sure the number of classes too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I looked at the last, Sherry actually took out the reports from many years ago. And she's like,
I like this.
Yeah. You like that one better?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Which one do you
Which
like?
one?
The first
She
one.
likes the primaries better.
I like
can't
the,
see.
the way the primaries got
The
it.
primaries, yeah.
She likes the primaries better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody else kind of feeling that same vibe?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great.
Yeah.
All right. See what we can do with that. I do have one other thing for you. I'll pass it out now, although we can't take action on it right now until Jen comes back. But it's an addendum to the personnel memo. It didn't get out into your packets.
Oh, okay.
So then I'll remind us to circle back when Jen comes back.
Okay. Any help in reminding us would be great.
I put a big asterisk on my agenda.
I'll put it here so I know to deal with that. Okay.
In between us, and we'll both
Okay,
be
good.
like,
Well,
what is
then,
this?
well, in theory, okay. Great. Bianca, I think you're up. Title funding.
Title.
Saved the most exciting presentation
talk
for the
about
end
title
of the
funding so
central
much,
office
like-
reports. So I was asked to give a general overview of title funding, which title funds we receive, and generally what they're for, and how we use the money. And I will just say that title funding is very complex. There are a lot of intricacies involved, a lot of stipulations, so I will do my best to give a high-level overview, and I'm happy to speak more in depth with anyone at any time. I'm still learning myself. So, a little bit of background, just around federal grant funding. Originally, there was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act that started in 1965. We now have the Every Student Succeeds Act. And really, the focus was on closing achievement gaps to ensure all students, especially students from disadvantaged and high needs areas, have access to quality education. So it provides funding for various educational programs. So you see Title 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Rutland City Public Schools does not receive Title 5 funding. It's rural schools. This is the first year in which we are receiving Title 3 funding. So at a very high level, Title I looks at reducing achievement gaps in high poverty schools. Title II looks at supporting effective instruction. Title III is supporting English language learners. And Title IV is student support and enrichment. There's also something called the school-wide plan. And Rutland City Public Schools, actually all of our schools qualify as school-wide schools, which allows us to pool these funds together to allow for more flexibility in supporting students. So it really allows us to quote the grants, and a lot of, I should note that a lot of this presentation is quoted directly from components of either ESSA or Vermont AOE guidance or federal guidance, but basically allows for upgrading the entire academic program at eligible schools. School-wide programs allow us to serve all students and teachers. So if we weren't a school-wide school, we would have to specifically identify Title I students that could be served with Title I funds, but because all of our schools have at least 40% low socioeconomic rates or poverty rates, we qualify for all of our students and staff to benefit from the use of our title funds. It does require us to have what's called a school-wide plan. The Agency of Education has rolled that into the continuous improvement plan, which I'll talk a little bit more at the end here. So I'll give you a quick breakdown. Title I, and anyone who wants to dig in more, there are very lengthy documents available on the Agency of Education website. But generally speaking, you have the purpose of Title I is to provide all children significant opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high-quality education and to close achievement gaps. So it's really aimed at reducing achievement gaps in high-poverty schools. This is how we use Title I-A funds. We use a lot of them for supplemental instruction. That includes personnel, materials, and assessments. So, for example, our FastBridge screener, anything that's not required under the law, we fund through our title grants. We pay for tutoring, non-academic services that impact student performance. So that could include things such as school counseling, additional social emotional supports that could, school climate that could impact student performance. We are required under the law to set aside money for what's called parent-family engagement, and we do that in a variety of ways. We also are required to set aside funds to support students experiencing homelessness. That includes money, the largest percent we set aside is for transportation for students to continue to stay in their school of origin so they have educational continuity. And then also supports for multilingual learners. For example, one of our 3 MLL teachers is funded out of Title I. Title II generally is about supporting effective instruction. So the purpose is preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers, principals, and other school leaders. We use Title IIA for professional development to support effective instruction, teacher mentoring, academic coaching, and supporting effective use of data. And so I will say that within Title II, there are a lot of restrictions regarding who we can purchase what professional development for. So it gets a little complex, and people sometimes say, can we pay for this group of individuals to do this thing? And oftentimes it's not allowable under the grant. Title III, like I said before, this is the first year we've qualified for Title III. We actually get a very, relatively speaking, a very small amount of funds for Title III. It's our smallest amount. We get around $15,000. And the sole purpose of Title III is supporting English language learners and to help ensure that English learners, including immigrant children and youth, attain English proficiency and develop high levels of academic achievement in English. Under Title III, we are required to invest those funds in 3 different activities. There's kind of a menu of things you can choose from in each of those 3 areas. We have invested them to improve instructional programming for MLL students. So I'm using MLL, multilingual learners, which is more current than English language learners. We are using them to provide specific professional development, and then also to provide community participation programs to ELs and their families. So how can we get our families of our MLL population more involved in what's happening in the schools?
And you said we currently receive only 15,000?
Yeah,
Okay.
so in
But
that
you have to use 3
15,000,
different-
I have to break it into at least 3 investments that meet all of these criteria. The other complex thing is, because this is our first year receiving Title III, we also have to follow what's called supplement, not supplant, and we're not allowed to include anything that we've paid for previously locally. So it's provided us with an opportunity to move some things out of Title I into Title III, and also has allowed us to add some new things that we haven't had previously.
Why is this the first year that we're using Title III?
It's the first year we've been approved for Title III because it's the first year we tested enough students to be eligible. So what happens is the state of Vermont actually gets what's called the Small State Title III grant because the entire population in the state is still significantly smaller than many other states. And then they look at all of the school districts and they determine through a formula a cutoff on the number of students tested through a WIDA assessment, what the magic number is going to allow us to qualify for Title III grants. This year, we finally had enough students to be able to qualify for those funds. Very few school districts in the state qualify.
Are these on a reimbursement model?
Yes.
They all are?
Yes, so we have to, so it's a little complicated. I'll try to explain it sort of quickly. We have to have a fully approved application, including our investments have to be very specific and approved all the way through the many steps before we can allocate the funds. And then we go through and spend the funds, and then we seek reimbursement on a quarterly basis for what's been approved. And because we have to plan ahead and submit that for approval, sometimes we end up what's called carryover. If we meet certain thresholds for that, where let's say we plan to hire a position, we weren't able to hire it, I can amend the grant a certain number of times.
Oh, and change what the
And change it, so like if we
Gotcha.
have a math interventionist in
Yeah.
there and we can't hire them until halfway through the year, I can use those funds in a different way. But after April 15th, there's no more opportunity, so if we end up with excess money, then sometimes it hits the grant in October after we've closed out our previous fiscal year, and we're able to then invest those funds for another allowable thing.
But they wouldn't necessarily reimburse, if it's reimbursed, you'd have to spend it before you got it, the money,
Correct.
so you wouldn't really have excess funds anyway.
So, well, what'll happen is, if we don't spend all of our allocated money, and there are rules for each title, has different set of rules. So like in Title I, we would have to draw down, we could only carry over 15% of unspent funds for like one fiscal year. And we have to use that money first. So we don't know if we have carryover funds. I mean, we can guess based on how much we've spent.
At the end, you're saying?
At the end,
Gotcha,
and then we
okay.
do our closeout usually by, we have to by September 30th, and then the AOE goes through their process, and then sometimes around this time of year or a little bit earlier, we're like, hey, you get to keep this money that you didn't spend last year
Yep.
and reinvest it. And then finally, we have Title IV, and Title IV is the most flexible. It is for student support and academic enrichment programming. So it has a couple of different purposes. To improve student academic achievement by increasing capacity to provide all students with a well-rounded education, improve school conditions for learning, promote the effective use of technology, and supporting achievement in digital literacy. Again, we have to have at least 3 required activities, something connected to well-rounded education, something connected to safe and healthy schools, and effective use of technology. Within this category, there are certain percentages you have to meet with your investments. For example, generally speaking, effective use of technology can't be more than, it's something like you have to have at least 20% in this area, 20% in this area, and then software and hardware can only be 15% of the total funds that you set aside in effective use of technology. This year, we actually applied for a waiver to allow us to go above the 15%, primarily because our equitable services, which I'll talk about, our independent schools, had a significant number of requests for software and hardware that we wouldn't have been able to grant, so we were able to get that waiver. We use this money to support artists in residence, enrichment, physical and mental health supports, social emotional learning supports, support for hazing, harassment, and bullying prevention, software programs, and technology, including some of our STEAM equipment. And again, many of our current investments are what's called school-wide. With a school-wide investment, we have to invest them to a specific school. If we have a school-wide investment throughout the district, we have to portion out how much we are using in each school, or we can do an investment that goes across the district, but it has to be specific to one title. So hiring an MLL teacher for Rutland City Public Schools, which allows flexibility with where the person can work, is Title I, is approvable under Title I. Something like our data coach, who works across the district, is portioned out for a certain amount of time in each school because we do it as a school-wide investment since it crosses over a variety of titles.
So then you could use a different title for that.
So what we actually do is we pool the money in our application to say, I'd like to use X amount of Title II funds, X amount of Title IV funds, and X amount of Title I funds, and they're all going to go towards school-wide. And then when I write the grant, I might take one investment, like a data coach, and break it out amongst 5 different schools. And then I have to give the percentage, and then I have to code for both salary and benefits. It's very fun.
My God. So you have to tell them if it's
Yes.
supporting from other titles where that money's coming from. Like this is partially
Yeah.
supported by other titles. They want to know that.
They want to know that. If you have a school-wide plan, the school-wide plan is approved. I don't have to specifically say 30,000 of this is coming from Title II. I have to, in the overall application, ensure that it balances.
Yeah.
With how we're pooling those resources, but it gives us more flexibility. Let's say we didn't need to spend all of our Title II money on professional development, but we really wanted to do something in Title IV that we needed a little bit of extra funding for. We could swing that money over there. You also have the ability to transfer funds, which we did this year. We were able to transfer some of our Title IV money into Title I based on how we are going to draw down our funds to allow us to pretty much use up all of the unspent expiring funds before we did our first quarter closeout, so we are maximizing our use of those funds. Some other considerations for grant work. You have to have continuous improvement plans. Those are specific to schools. They involve various stakeholders, and they go through a series of approvals, including at the school board level and also at the agency of education level. And all of our investments have to be connected to our continuous improvement plans. And those are completed through a thorough data inventory and needs assessment. Equitable services. So we are required to engage our independent schools in equitable services of title funding. So for Rutland City, we actually have 6 qualified independent schools that I have to engage with regularly through ongoing consultation. And they have to say whether or not they would like to access the title funding. There are different requirements for each of the titles. They are not eligible for school-wide, so I work alongside those individuals to help them to have approved investments within our grants. We, this year, have 4 of the 6 independent schools in Rutland City that are accessing equitable services. And another consideration is approvability and grant restrictions. So there are many things that you cannot spend grant money on, and grants are very sometimes clear, sometimes confusing in outlining what's approvable, what's not approvable. We have to follow supplement, not supplant rules. Anything that's required under federal law, we cannot fund through grants. We have to fund it locally. So changes with Act 139 prevented us from funding some things we had previously paid for out of grants. We had to move into local because they are now required under law. Also, there's a rule, if we paid for it locally in the last year, we can't now roll it into grant funding. And that idea of those school-wide investments is really helpful to us. As I said, the majority of the investments we make are school-wide, which allow us to have more flexibility. And we have some other AOE grants. Some of the ones that I manage are the Stronger Connections grant. This is a subset of Title IV. It's what's called a competitive grant, so we have to apply separately for that. We are on year 4 of that 4-year grant. We do not anticipate that the Stronger Connections grant will be available next year for approval. We also, for many, many years, have received an anti-tobacco grant. The anti-tobacco grant is about $25,000 a year. That is also a competitive grant that we need to apply for, usually every 2 years, and then you do a continuation in the second year. This year, we didn't hear about the anti-tobacco grant until very close to the end of June. Again, I believe it's connected to Title IV, but I'd have to go back and look. That may or may not exist in the future. What we currently fund out of it, we could make do without. However, it benefits our students to have additional resources there. And then we also get a very small, couple $1,000, BEST grant, which stands for Building Effective Supports for Teaching. We use the bulk of our BEST grant, which we have to match locally, for our PBIS, positive behavioral interventions and supports, as well as our CPI training needs across the district.
CPI is Crisis Prevention Institute's de-escalation and for students with behavioral challenges.
Any questions for me about title grants?
I have a question for maybe Ted. Does our accounting software have a way of tagging these expenses by grant? So it's not like you have to do this a super manual, labor-intensive thing. You can just kind of run those reports by title?
It's all done through coding. We code, if it's a school-wide investment, we code it. If it's a Title IV investment, it gets coded to a certain line. So we're able to pull reports for different accounts on how we're spending the funds.
Right, so you can easily see where we're at.
Positions that are funded through the grant are coded specifically in that way.
Yeah.
And for that reason, the business office works very closely with Bianca to accomplish that.
It's a very, it's a lot of work. From what I'm hearing, just the application part, getting that process, get ready to go, and then the implementing it, and then tracking it all year long. Because if you're going to report it quarterly for reimbursement, you got to know where you're at so you can do that.
There are also a lot of other mandated reports we have to complete. For example, a couple times a year, we have to do what's called a comparability assessment to ensure that we are equitable in how we are using our resources, especially when it relates to personnel across buildings, based on the needs of students. In our case, we really only have to, we have to do the report for everyone, but we're really only comparing East and West. So it looks at enrollment, it looks at staffing, and based on that, we have to make adjustments if we find we have some inequities. So the question that people have asked, and I'll just sort of put out there because we're actively contemplating this, and Pam alluded to it before, is, right now, I feel fairly confident that we will have Title I funding in some way next year. The way Title I funds are dispersed is based on how many districts in the state qualify. There are some districts that sit on the cusp of whether they will qualify from year to year. It could be a couple individual students that would tip the scale based on the requirements. Our numbers of low socioeconomic status populations in our schools makes me confident we will qualify for Title I, and I'm fairly confident that the federal government will keep Title I as is. I'm unsure about Title II, Title III, and Title IV funding. So as we are starting to explore budgeting, if you recall last year, we actually we had a pause on those funds for a little while this summer. We are looking at current investments, including staff investments, that we would not be able to fund if we didn't have 2, 3, or 4. And when you look at positions, really in Title I, we could fund interventionists, we could fund school counselors, certain ones that are currently funded in the grant. Coaching, we probably couldn't fund with just Title I funding. There's a variety of other things. So we are trying to figure out what could we do without if we didn't have title funds, and what might we consider moving into local as a precaution, because we won't know officially what our actual allocation is until July 1st, even though we have to submit an application based on preliminary numbers prior to that.
One of the pitfalls that we fall into in keeping positions solely in the titles is that if we don't hear about the funds, we can't hire those positions. And so then by the time we hear, if we take this past year, for example, it's very late to go out for hiring, and then we end up not being able to fill positions because we waited for hearing about title.
And we were in a much better spot this year than some of our colleagues because we knew we had carry forward in Title II and Title IV, which allowed us to still write school-wide investments. Whereas our colleagues in other districts, when we had a temporary pause on 2 and 4, their hands were tied. And because of when we have to issue contracts to staff, it's well before we have final allocations. So we're doing our best to stay knowledgeable and look at trends, and some of it might be predictable and some might be less predictable. All right.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
The money technically comes from the Department of Education.
Yes.
And the uncertainty with that is why we are in the situation that we're in. I just
Yes.
wanted to clarify that. Probably very obvious statement, but I wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yeah, and so the funding comes from the federal government to the Agency of Education, and then the Agency of Education disperses it to supervisory unions. So at this point, we stay pretty closely connected with our Agency of Education colleagues, especially on the grant team. They're very familiar with me. I'm not afraid to ask questions about things. It's really a great team, and they are feeling hopeful. They've asked for level funding. But as you can imagine, they've asked for level funding for several years now, so the cost of everything increases, and we're only asking for level funding. They don't know for sure if they will get that. They get an initial allocation, I think, in April of what they think they will be receiving, and then they tell schools, here's what we think you're going to get, but they don't officially get the money until July. So we have to submit an application before July, but we can't get final approval until after that money is given to the
About how much of our funding comes from Title I, II, III, and IV?
It varies from year to year. I would say many years we have significant carryover money. Like last year, we had significant carryover money because of a waiver the state got from unused funds during ESSER times. But generally speaking, if we look at our initial allocations, it's probably close to 2.5 million in our consolidated federal grants, which is titles 1, 2, 3, and 4, without any carry forward. It might even be a little higher than that.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you, because I'm the one who asked for this information, just because we've heard so much about it, more so since you've taken on your role as assistant superintendent. So thank you for putting together this report. I think,
You're
educate
welcome.
all of us. I appreciate it.
Happy to share it anytime.
And we're grateful that the grants team knows you and knows.
Yeah.
It means you're doing. No. It just
got it
means
right
that you're
here.
asking all the right questions, so.
Exactly.
Thanks, Bianca.
She's over there.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the addendum to the personnel memo.
So moved.
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, all right. Thank you. Thanks for that reminder. All right, Commissioner Studley, I think you're up.
Okay. So, Glenn Scott already kind of went through majority of what we talked about in our building committee meeting last Tuesday. We talked about the fiscal year 27 capital projects and budget, so I'm not going to go over those again. We talked about the RMS kitchen. That's going to be a pretty significant update, and we're thinking that the first phase of that will not be until the summer of 2027 at the earliest. So you'll be hearing about those updates in the next year. And then just a couple follow-up things. We got the final updates on some projects that were finished from like our summer projects, which was the fencing in the sidewalk area at outside of the playground at RIS. At Stafford Technical Center, the lift was finished or was put in, and the scissor lift, I should say. And I just wanted to note that the next building committee meeting will be starting at 5:00, but it will be going less time till 5:45, as we have to start the finance committee early, as we have a executive session after our committee meetings that night. So that's that. Thank you.
Questions for Stephanie?
Anybody have questions?
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to handle the
That's
finance and strategic.
What? That's you.
Yes, I said I'm going to handle. I said I'm going to handle this. The comedy show. Okay, okay. So thanks again, Ted, for the excellent notes. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. So we also met on Tuesday, November 4th, the Finance and Strategic Planning Committee, and we covered three main topics: the Booster Club, a strategic plan update by Bianca and Pam, and then, of course, an update on the fiscal year 27 budget from Ted. We were grateful to have Kevin Markowski, who pretty much donates his time as an accountant with our Booster Club. He is the RHS Booster Club treasurer, and he reported on our club's financial results and activities. The club's tax return for the year ending in June of 2025 was filed successfully. Kevin also discussed the club's cash balances, inventory, and team accounts. He shared highlights of club donations to and support for many organizations in the community through the Vertical Raise platform, which was, I think, pretty exciting. Yeah, right? Yeah, you guys did a lot on that, I think, so, right? Yeah, thanks for that. There was discussion about possible repairs for the concession stand at Alumni Field. Glenn Scott, Director of Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation, will look into taking care of some of the repair work in terms of leaks, new paint, and possible heat pump. So Glenn stayed for that meeting, and not just because there was pizza. Okay. Strategic plan update, so we moved on from there, and Bianca first spoke to us, and we talked about implementing actions for the plan's priority area of teaching and learning. Action steps are being worked on for all grade levels from K to 12. This work includes an increased focus on what is called a multi-tiered system of supports, or what we've become known as MTSS, and now we are getting more familiar with all of the acronyms. The district is developing plans to ensure that it will have enough interventionists and tutors needed for this really important work in that priority area. Pam then went on to describe progress in another priority area of evolution of wellness through inclusive school communities. We have implemented, or she has implemented a student survey for high school athletics and activities. And survey highlights will be presented after results have been reviewed. And there's also a survey for RMS students in athletics and activities is being developed. So I'm assuming you guys did that this fall. Great, thank you. Pam said that the administrative team is reviewing how attendance data could be used to provide insights on student wellness, since there is a correlation between attendance and student wellness. So more on that. And then, of course, Ted went into the fiscal year 27 budget and provided an update to the committee, which was very similar to what we all saw tonight and what he presented to the board. The administration is working on finalizing staffing level assumptions and the resulting salary and benefits budgets. Based on the outlook for federal, sorry, let me start over. Based on the outlook for federal title grant funding next year, which we obviously just learned a little bit more about, budget estimates are also being updated to reflect some possible reductions in federal funding, which of course we just talked about. So our next meeting is also on December 2nd. We're starting a little bit early at 5:45, and we're ending at 6:30 due to, again, we have an executive session that night. Any questions on that? Okay, great. Ryan, I think you're up.
I am. So, we met on October 21st to go over some two new policies that we have. One of them is something that is required now or is about to be required. I cannot recall, but the fingerprint-based criminal history record information. So we got that policy and adopted that one, plus also a lactation support policy as well for people who choose to feed their children through lactation. Just as a good way of making sure that people know that they are in fact supported, even if it is the legal thing for us to do. It is also nice for us to say, no, we have do the thing. Then we have a duplicate copy of our prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX that was added to the personnel, so that was more personnel, and then we aligned it also with the VSBA in the student section as well, and updated some grammar on school conduct and discipline. So it's two very long, policies that are in this packet. But yeah.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve these policies for first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you, motion passes. Okay, we have the VSBA and Legislative Action Committee report. I'm going to try to give that a stab with Kathy being out, and then if you'd like to step in and make sure that I've covered what I'm supposed to cover, that'd be great, Pam.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So we met as a committee for the first time on October 21st, and that was really to familiarize the committee as well as any board members who could make it with the work that Maggie Lenz has been doing with us in terms of really putting boots on the grounds up with folks in Montpelier to help us really have a good understanding of what's going on with the redistricting task force as well as other AOE challenges, that was maybe the wrong choice of words, but other AOE situations that are going to affect us here. And so a lot of the actual meeting was her preparing us to be ready for the meeting the next night, which was, of course, the redistricting task force town hall type meeting that we hosted at Rutland High School, and really helped us prepare our strategy for Kathy speaking and Pam speaking and Greg speaking, right? Is that, yeah, and Greg speaking. So that's a lot of what that meeting was really about. Is that accurate? The actual
Yes.
meeting was about that, right? Yeah. So we're really preparing for that town hall. Was it called the town hall?
No.
No, it wasn't. It was just called a listening
Public
session or
comment.
something. Public comment, yeah. Okay. And then we did get a little bit of an update from Maggie pretty recently, Monday, so just a couple of days ago. And she let us know that one of the options that the task force was considering was a CTE, a Center for Technology Education-based governance map that would have placed RCPS into a multi-board supervisory union, and that failed by a wide margin. In its place, the task force is advancing a BOCES-like proposal built on cooperative education services and other voluntary mergers. This is the only plan that will be sent to the legislature by the task force. This one does not mandate any changes to Rutland City Public Schools governance, which I think we see as a really positive thing for us.
I think the governance, we've been strong that a school district has been working well for us.
Right, okay, good.
As opposed to a supervisory union.
Okay.
So there will be no map moved forward by the redistricting task force, just really what we have now, which is the availability to merge and work with our neighboring districts, should we choose.
Okay. Is that maybe where we should leave that? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the update on that committee. I don't recall I think we're meeting after policy.
That's what we had set up, that we would meet weekly
Yeah.
after, or monthly
So-
after policy.
So that would be the 16th, maybe? Tuesday.
This is coming Tuesday.
Oh, this coming to, I already went to December. I skipped right over November. So, yeah, Tuesday the 18th. Yes, our next meeting is Tuesday the 18th following policy.
Which is at 5:30, and I forgot to mention that.
Okay, great. It's at 5:30.
So can I just add something with that?
Sure, of course.
So as the VSBA
Yes,
regional
5:30.
rep for the Vermont School Board Association, one of my emails, like, you will all be getting an email sent out from myself or the other regional rep to give you guys more information on much more in depth of what Mary Beth just said. But yeah, so in their first, November 20th is when they're going to give their first draft. So we'll be
Thanks for
knowing.
serving on that board.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, so just to recap, policy is on November 18th at 5:30, and VSBA and Legislative Action Committee follows that at 6:30 to 7:30. Okay, very good. Great. Thanks, Ryan, for that reminder.
Oh, no.
On time.
No,
so.
thank you for the reminder.
Are we ready for, we are ready for board report, and so we took on some professional development. Myself, Stephanie, Kathy, and Christina all went to the VSBA conference.
Yearly conference.
Yearly conference.
And Pam.
Well, right, and Pam went, of course. And Ted, you were there you didn't go up to the other, okay. And so I know that, and Jen attended the Rutland conference, and then we have some conversation about policy governance. I didn't know if we wanted to, Pam, you want to maybe highlight some of the things from the VSBA?
Yeah, if
or
folks wanted to share any key takeaways that they had from either the VSBA or the Rutland conference. And then I think Stephanie and Jen were going to share about the professional development they did last
the
Sunday
governance,
about
okay.
policy governance.
I know one thing that really, one of the sessions that Stephanie and I went to at the VSBA conference was how to better engage student members of our boards. And so I think that we're hoping to maybe improve that, I mean, that's not a reflection on you two, that's a reflection on us and how we maybe engage you or don't engage you, so, okay, so that might be.
And on top of that as
Yeah.
well, just to echo off her, which kind of goes in with part of the unfinished business in our work plan, is we will be developing a, what's the word? Help me, somebody.
The work plan?
No,
The timeline?
Keywords.
You'll think of it.
An onboarding packet.
it.
An onboarding packet. I'm like, what's the word? So that is gonna be something that we're gonna, it's to help you guys, and so we're gonna, but there's a whole process before we get to
Onboarding
that.
packet, so I had no
Onboarding
idea
packet.
what-
I was like, somebody help me. So,
okay.
but that's, more to come on that
Yeah.
piece. But it was a really good, it was probably one of the better sessions, I think.
so.
It was
Yeah,
really
it was good.
informative.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. Jen, do you want to, no, you just had a good day.
I wasn't prepared.
No, I know, sorry. You don't have to say anything about, I know I went several years ago, because other people I think have been to the
Yeah.
Rutland Conference. It tends to be just a really great day of, I think you've been.
Yeah,
you've-
I went last year. Yeah,
Okay.
it was awesome.
It's just a really great
Yeah.
day of sharing and learning from each other, yeah, so, good. All right, do you guys want to talk about
Yeah.
policy governance at all, or?
So Jen and I are going to kind of tag team the policy governance conversation, and at the end of it, there is going to be an action item. So something that we are looking at for the board, well, I should start off that Jen and I both did a 6-hour class on Sunday, November 2nd at Otter Valley to learn about policy governance, to come back to kind of report to the board. And so I'm just gonna give you a little synopsis of why policy governance. So it's the ability to create a more clear, accountable, and efficient structure for the organization, which is us, the board, defines roles and responsibilities a little bit more in depth, and allows for a more strategic board meetings, and empowers management by setting clear expectations and boundaries. Policy governance also ensures the organization meets its objectives and avoid risks through a consistent evidence-based monitoring system, and it actually would end up we would be removing some of the committees, and so there would be less committee meetings, such I won't go into details of what those are at the moment, but then but if we have like special things that we need to work on, then we would create ad hoc committees. And so in like our monthly meeting may be a little bit longer, but like a lot of like the reporting that we are already doing is already in there. It just like we wouldn't necessarily have a building committee anymore, because we don't really do any action in those committees. And so the action is once we get to this spot, so it would be a little bit different. And same with finance, it would be different. And the one guaranteed committee is, what are you in charge of?
Staff relations.
Staff relations, thank you. I'm like, your committee.
I think we have a handout too.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So, yes, this is a handout. It's kind of like Policy Governance 101. You guys can take it, read it. So it's a quick handout, and I mean, so what Jen can, tell you the motion, and anybody have any like quick questions?
I got a question, I guess.
Oh, yes.
I guess I didn't realize this is an action item, because it doesn't say action item on here, and I'm a little concerned that this
So-
is a
We're
pretty.
not looking to actually
No.
vote on moving forward with
I was a little
this.
concerned.
Yeah, all we're
'cause-
doing in the action item, the vote is going to just say yes or no if we want to sit in a class and have somebody come in and talk to us further about it. And then at that point, there'll be an action item if we actually move the board in the direction of policy governance.
What's the action item tonight?
To keep learning about it, basically.
To keep learning.
To invite
learning
someone
in
to
depth
speak
from
with
somebody
us.
who does, like, she's the only person in the country that
That
does
has to
it.
be an action item?
Yes.
We're looking to
Okay.
secure.
I guess, but this is kind of a significant change to the board structure that we're doing.
We're
But-
just looking for a commitment for the board to spend 2 hours.
Right.
Listening.
But what I'm saying is that this is a major structure of the board, which we don't have a lot of the board people here to say, let's commit to going this direction.
We're not asking.
We're not asking
But
that.
you're asking for a commitment to go, to learn more about this, right?
Right. Then
Doesn't
to-
mean we have to continue.
But we
moving in
doesn't
that
mean we have to
direction.
continue. It's just to learn. Basically, it's a shorter class of what Jen and I went and sat in.
Who's doing the learning?
The board would
The
be.
board is going to do it, right? So you're saying that we should vote to go learn more about this without the other half of the board here? Well, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
We can still do business. I mean,
I get what you're saying, but yeah, that's, no, that was actually that was one of my questions earlier as well.
I think we're not committing to anything. We're committing to learning more about it. If we have an action item, I guess we're committing to something. Right, we are
Otherwise,
committing
we
to
wouldn't
learning
have an
more
action
about
item.
it. And then we can, and then I think
2 hours
we
of
would all be more informed at that point to say whether we want to go that route or not. And I think we can't decide to go that route unless we learn a little more about it. And so we've done other action, we've voted on other stuff tonight with a quorum. I know it's not ideal.
This is a major change, so I'm just
But it's-
putting
I
that
think
out
we're
there.
aware of that, right?
But it's
So-
not-
So that's why I'm taking it more of a, I realize we voted on other things today that were not as significant. Okay, so I'm just putting that out there, but go ahead, continue.
The only vote, but it's not to vote if we're gonna, as a board.
I understand that we're
Okay.
not voting to do it. We were voting to, I totally
I don't
understand what
think
you're
it's as
saying.
big of a deal.
So you're voting because we're having an action item tonight. Are we gonna learn more about this?
Yes. And then once your guys are more informed.
Totally understand what's happening.
Okay.
So I'm just putting it out there that half the board's not here to talk about this, but we can go forward, and I'm assuming we're gonna approve this, so, but I'm just gonna make that.
Maybe we won't approve it, maybe we won't, we have to vote, so. All right, do you and Jen have anything else or does anybody else have any questions or statements they want to
I'm good.
talk about? Okay. I would entertain a motion to continue learning more about.
Jen has a motion with specific.
wording,
Oh,
if that's
I'm
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because we
No, I
had
didn't-
talked to Kathy about it.
No, I didn't know
earlier,
that. I'm sorry. Thank you for having that, because I'm just filling in, and I didn't know what
sorry,
we
I
had.
didn't
So
tell you
just,
that.
I wasn't trying to jump in and step
Oh,
on
no,
your
no,
toes,
that's
Jen,
okay.
okay? I didn't know.
No, but I would like to make a motion to contract with Jeannie Collins to teach a 2-hour introduction to policy governance to the full board.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? I
All
don't
those-
say that, though.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I don't know if I vote. I vote because I'm not always the chair. I don't vote tonight.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay. So I think it
5 of us.
it passes 5.
Correct.
5,
Yes.
5-0,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, guys.
And if anybody I have there's different things, like I can give you direction of where to look at stuff to get you more knowledgeable before Jeannie comes in. Because it is a lot of information, but it's, overall, it's definitely it makes everything more efficient.
And I think the districts around us use this, so but we gotta learn more about it, so.
Yeah.
You wanna go that route or not, so. All right, thanks for attending that, Jen, and,
It was really interesting.
yeah,
It was very interesting.
okay, I don't, Pam, can you refresh my memory? What were we gonna give a board?
Yes. So you were just gonna talk about the, board goals that you adopted last time and where you're at with each.
Okay, I was not prepared for that part of filling in for Kathy tonight.
So you can do the superintendent piece.
Right.
Jen and I will do the
great,
work
thank you.
plan.
Oh, my gosh, thank God.
Jen and I will do, yeah.
Great. Charlene and I met with, so one of our board goals is to establish goals for Pam to be included in her annual evaluation. And so Charlene and I were a part of that kind of ad hoc group to do that, and we met with Pam a couple of times on that, and we're gonna actually meet in executive session tonight to discuss those, but I think we're in a pretty good spot. Charlene, don't you maybe agree?
Agreed.
Okay, good, okay. So that's one of our goals, and then another one is the work plan.
So Jen and I have been working on the work plan, and that we will be submitting one for, in December for a vote, and from December to June, and then there will be, and then in like February, we will be voting again for the starting in June for the next year. And what we're submitting from December to June is it's a lot of stuff that we already have, and it's just moving some pieces around. And Jen and I have met with Pam already, and we'll be meeting most likely a few more times. It's just adding some things, such as like in December there will be it's a Zoom for people if they want to run for the school board, what to expect. There will be something we're going to be working on, as I mentioned, was an onboarding packet type thing for the student reps and also the board members, because each one of us got different trainings as we came in at different times. So just to have something more basic and, uniform, just like a binder. So those are going to be like the first part of the work plan, just because we don't really want to wait till June to start stuff, and some of this stuff we can start earlier. So as I said, the first part of the work plan for the rest of our terms, or the rest of this, will be we will have it, Kathy wants us to have it set for December, and then the second one will be in, I believe, February. You got anything to add?
No, I think you covered a lot of it. I think also is, looking at the policy, governance and stuff, a lot of this really dovetails in well, so.
Like a lot of stuff like we're already doing.
Ourselves up well for that.
Like a lot of stuff that we're already doing is a good part of what policy governance is, yes. So.
Great, anything else on the board goals? Okay, I think our next item was the work plan, which I think you just gave us.
Yeah, I gave you the synopsis of the work plan. Like I said, there's so many things that dovetail, and you can be like talking about stuff even within the strategic plan. You'd be like, oh, that should go in the work plan. Like, it's not, and it doesn't necessarily make more work for us. It just makes things more efficient and clear about when we're doing things. So.
Great. Do we have any new business? All right, I would entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing the evaluation of the superintendent under the provisions of Title I, Section A3 of Vermont statutes, the evaluation of a public officer or employee, and we'd like to invite Pam Reed to join us for the executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Motion passes.